What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Powerful One channel. Today is going to be all about the body portion of Powerful One, and we're going to be talking about nutrition. If you guys follow me on social media or if we're friends, you guys know that nutrition is a huge part of my life. You know, I don't, like I always talk about, I don't put physical training and nutrition at the same level of importance that I do the spiritual man. Like we've talked about, the spirit is the deepest place of us, and then the mental, and then the body. But I do really believe that they work synergistically, right? That the way you take care of your physical body is gonna help your mental and your spiritual to a certain degree. So today we're gonna be talking about food. We're gonna be talking about nutrition. This is something that is just super passionate for me. I think it was I want to say 2018 is when I really got into nutrition. I literally just remember I was still training hard. Like I've always kind of trained hard as an athlete, whether it's in the gym or in athletics and different things like that, MMA and different things. But I remember specifically just in 2018, my family and I had just moved, and I started just getting really dialed in. My brother and I at the time started getting really dialed in nutritionally, and I just noticed that it fueled my performance a lot better. I felt like I had more energy during my workouts, but I also noticed my physique began to change dramatically based on the quality of foods that I was eating, and that just got me really fascinated. You know, I began to study a lot and learn a lot about nutrition, watching videos, listening to podcasts, trying to absorb as much information as I could. After a couple years, I ended up getting a sports nutrition certification, as well as just studying nutrition for a long time. During 2020, I wrote a comprehensive 40-page nutrition program, the Powerful One, or Powered Up Body program rather. I had one for athletes and one for regular people, and I broke down a bunch of nutritional information that I had learned, that I had studied. But I feel like the biggest thing for me nutritionally is the fact that I have experimented and I have tried all of these different diets, all of the different fads, because ultimately, I want to put things to the test, right? It's okay when the research says one thing, when studies say one thing, but you can really confirm something when you've put it to the test for yourself. You've done trial and error, you've gotten blood work results, and you kind of see how things work for your body, because ultimately, the reason I got out of the nutrition field is there's so many X factors. Everybody's body's different. And so what I learned is there's no one size fits all, you know, and that's something that even as a Muay Thai coach, I've really tried to go beyond that. There's only one way to punch. There's only one way to kick. There's only one way to elbow. You know, I truly believe there's a lot of different ways to achieve a specific goal, a specific result. And I felt like the nutrition information as a whole, especially in the bodybuilding community, was so wrong, because one of the things that I've tried to do as an athlete, but also somebody who truly cares about my health, is understanding that what is good for anabolic, what is good for my muscles, and what is good for performance is not always what's best health-wise. And so trying to blend those different things, okay, what's gonna be best for building muscle and for performance, but also making sure that those things are also healthy. I've really tried to, over the years, implement protocols and different nutrition practices that are gonna help me both physically, how I feel, but also make sure that I'm still gonna be healthy, still gonna be able to perform and all those different things. So we are gonna jump right in. As you guys probably know from the channel, one of the biggest parts of my diet is raw dairy. Now here's the thing about raw dairy, quick story guys. So I was the type of person, like I said, I've tried all these elimination diets. I have tried to get rid of a lot of different food groups just to see how my body feels. And dairy, and I think probably like 2019, 2020, I finally cut out dairy for the first time. And I have been pretty much dairy free for about 4 or 5 years, very strictly. And I felt so much better when I cut out dairy. As far as elimination diets, that was probably the thing that affected my body significantly the most as far as inflammation goes. And I would research and I would understand that a lot of people were having the same problems. A lot of people couldn't break down, process, and digest dairy. Their body would show signs of chronic inflammation, acne, bloating, just overall uncomfortability, feeling lethargic after eating dairy. And so a lot of people, you know, the dairy-free label started to blow up after a couple years because people were realizing that this processed dairy that we were eating, specifically here in America, was not good, was causing these chronic inflammation issues. And so when I cut cut out dairy, it was a turning point in my health because I no longer had constant bloating every single time, constant acne problems. As I was eating this processed dairy, and when I say processed dairy, I really mean pasteurized dairy, which I'm gonna transition to why I now consume raw dairy. But what I noticed is when I was consuming this pasteurized dairy, my body wasn't able to break it down. And so what I've noticed, and part of the Powerful One nutrition protocol, is raw forms of dairy. And the reason for this, guys, is because when you pasteurize dairy, you're heating this dairy up to 300 degrees for an extended period of time. And what it does is it begins to take out all of the bacteria that's found in that milk. But it also begins to change the protein structure of that milk. It makes it harder to digest. Additionally, when milk is homogenized, there's no longer a separation from the cream that's in the milk and the regular milk itself. It mixes together so it looks more aesthetic on the shelves. But what it does is it really can have some problems of the way that it's broken down. Because what happens is these fat molecules begin to get smaller and they can begin to seep into your bloodstream and cause these autoimmune issues. And so a lot of people who are drinking and eating processed pasteurized dairy can have these autoimmune responses, this gut distress, acne, bloating, all of these different digestive and chronic inflammation issues because of what's happening during the process of pasteurization. Because yes, while you're removing a lot of the quote unquote bad bacteria, you're also removing all of the good bacteria and all of the properties in that milk that help you digest the milk. And when I've done research in pasteurized milk can have, I believe it's 10 coliform CFUs, which is one of the strains of bacteria that's found in the milk. They can have about 10, but the raw milk that I'm getting, they test to make sure there is no coliform CFUs in it. And so that's to say that the raw dairy I'm drinking is not only 10 times healthier bacteria-wise than the other pasteurized dairy that you'd get at a grocery store, but guys, it's dairy that I can digest. 85% of my diet is raw dairy, whether that's raw forms of cheese or raw milk. I drink an average of 32 ounces of raw milk a day, and I have had zero chronic inflammation and digestive problems. My body is able to digest it super easily. The milk that I get is from A2 cows, which is generally an easier digestible raw form of dairy. I could talk about this all day, but just to kind of tie a bow on this pasteurized dairy thing, guys, a lot of the reason that pasteurization happened was because certain climates and certain conditions for milking the cows started to get really bad in the 1800s, 1900s. So they began to heat up this dairy. They began to pasteurize it. And so the idea was you're gonna kill any bad bacteria. But the truth is when cows are raised responsibly, as the ruminant animals that they are, they're out in open fields, they're grazing on grass, they're not eating corn and soy. And when they're milked in safe and sanitary conditions, guys, raw milk is proven to be much healthier than any type of pasteurized dairy that you can get. So that is a big part of the Powerful One diet, is raw milk. Also, if you're an athlete, think about raw milk, guys. Raw milk is literally what a baby cow drinks in order to become bigger. And so if you're somebody who's looking to put on size or maybe looking to add calories to your training, raw milk is gonna be one of your best friends. It's got all the main macronutrients. It's got carbohydrates, protein, fats. It's gonna help you put on and maintain good size, but it's also gonna be really good digestion. It actually improved my acne significantly. There's still some certain aspects of dairy that I do test on. Like I know when I have something with dairy in it because of the way my body responds. Even to this day, I can't really do whey that's been processed and extracted. I just did an experiment in the past couple weeks with whey and I started to really break out from it. And so I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna stick with just raw dairy. It works good for me. The research is pretty clear that it can help with things like allergy, eczema, but ultimately guys, try it for yourself. That was the key for me. I hadn't had dairy for a long period of time and I just slowly tried to introduce some raw dairy, and guys, now 85% of my overall diet is raw dairy. So that is a staple in the Powerful One nutrition protocol. Next up would be the meats, guys. I am a big fan of red meat, as a lot of you guys probably know. I'm also a big fan of chicken. I think chicken is great. It is pretty nutrient dense, although it's not gonna be as nutrient dense as red meat is. Guys, red meat is like the ultimate multivitamin. It's got bioavailable protein. It's full of vitamins and minerals. It's gonna help you put on lean muscle mass if you're eating a good quality red meat. And one of the things that I look for when I'm eating red meat is making sure it's 100% grass-fed. Like it's weird that now I have to find 100% grass-fed beef that's less common, when the truth is, guys, cows are ruminant animals. They're not supposed to be eating corn and soy and being fattened up right before they're slaughtered to make the meat taste better and be a little bit fattier. That just goes against the cow's natural nature of being a ruminant animal. And so I only eat 100% grass-fed ground beef. I don't care if it's a little more expensive, guys. I don't spend money on a lot of other things. I spend money on food. That's one of my passions. And so I'm willing to spend an extra $2, maybe $1 per pound of ground beef. It usually lasts me about 2 days. I'm eating minimum a half pound of ground beef a day. I usually eat about 3 or 4 steaks throughout the week. So almost every single day I'm eating red meat, and I've gotten my blood work back. My blood work has been completely fine with that. I feel like a lot of people who have blood work issues eating red meat is because they're eating poor quality forms of red meat. And I think that's one of the ultimate things that I like to think about with the Powerful One nutrition protocol. For my travel, I've traveled to places like Thailand and Serbia and doing some missions work. And what I've realized, guys, is the American diet is so poisoned, but I don't want to let that distract me too much from still being able to eat as best as I can here in America. Guys, the truth is, I had stomach distress for a long time, almost every single night for like a 2-3 year period. I had already cut out dairy, gluten. I know that those things gave me gut distress. I ended up figuring out that one of the main culprits was just processed grains, as well as garlic and onion, which I've talked about on a different video if you want to know more about why those can be problematic here in the United States. But when I went to Thailand for a month, guys, I had never felt better. Everything that I was eating, my body felt good. It's like calories are energy, right? And so everything I was eating, I had energy right away. I was able to go train Muay Thai multiple times a day, be super active, walk a lot. And every time I would eat over in Thailand, I felt super good. Same thing over in Serbia. I've heard that about Italy, all these other countries. There are certain things here in America I don't eat because of the way the food is processed. And so it's not that inherent foods are necessarily good or bad, but part of it is the conditions that these foods are processed in or surrounded in. We know that here in America, there's a huge problem with grains and the glyphosate and the pesticides that are sprayed on grains. And so I don't eat any grains here in America, but if I were to go to a different country, if I were to go to Italy, I would eat all the pastas, all the breads, all that stuff, because I know that the way it's processed is completely different, but I will save some of that details for another episode. Another part of the Powerful One diet is gonna be fruits. As you guys know, I'm not big on vegetables. I have been a proponent of no vegetables for a long time. I mean, part of my 40-page comprehensive nutrition protocol that I wrote back in 2020 talked about how you don't need vegetables to have a healthy diet. I've always been more of a fan of fruits and roots. That has always been my main carbohydrate sources and my main sources for micronutrients, getting the nutrients that my body needs to be able to function. And you know, this is what I really think about with vegetables. Here's part of the reason that I started to really research vegetables is because growing up, you're always told to eat your vegetables. But once I got older, I realized that vegetables a lot of times don't want to be eaten. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's very common for vegetables to have a deterrent if they don't want to be eaten. We understand this as plant defense chemicals. These plants have a certain type of poison. Think about it like a porcupine, right? If the porcupine feels threatened, all of a sudden it's going to try to poke you, right? Or a turtle, right? When it feels threatened, is going to curl up in its shell. There's these animals that have these mechanisms of self-defense. Well, plants have the same thing. And so there's this different phytic acid and plant defense chemicals that a lot of plants have, specifically the stems, the leaves, and the seeds of these different plants. And so while yes, something like kale has a lot of nutrition, vitamin A, vitamin K, all of these different vitamins and minerals, it's bound up in this phytic acid. And so it's literally like going to the gym and hitting a fantastic workout and then going to McDonald's to refuel. You're like counteracting a lot of the hard work that you did in the gym because you're not replenishing the right way. And so it's like if you're eating vegetables all the time, yes, in theory, you're getting a lot of these nutrients, but they end up becoming anti-nutrients because they're bound up in this phytic acid. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. Like in a way it's healthy for me, but in a way it's not. And so part of the reason I do fruits is one, I've always liked them better, but two, generally speaking, fruit is gonna have less plant defense chemicals. It's the vibrant part of a plant that the plant grows the fruit because it wants you to eat the fruit. And so generally, all fruit might not have as much micronutrients, which a lot of fruits still do have a lot. Ultimately, they're gonna have less plant defense chemicals. And so the example, right, is if I go get to the store and get some organic blueberries, which is a big part of the Powerful One diet. And the reason we get organic blueberries, it's part of the Dirty Dozen list. So there's certain fruits. Normally a good rule of thumb, guys, is if you're gonna eat the skin of the fruit, try to get organic. It's worth the extra money because otherwise you're just counteracting the healthy nutrients that are in the blueberries by the poisonous chemicals, and it ends up not doing good for your body because they just counteract each other. It's like putting a super basic compound with a super acidic compound. It's just gonna neutralize. You're not gonna really have too many health benefits if you're eating non-organic blueberries, just very matter-of-factly, right? And so if I'm eating organic blueberries, my body is able to absorb a lot of those different nutrients. For example, blueberries are full of antioxidants. They have anthocyanins in there and flavonoids that are super, super powerful for fighting off any free radical damage that would try to happen in your body. Free radicals can come into your gut. They can wreak havoc on your immune system, can cause super gut distress, autoimmune disease. And we know, guys, here in America, people are having really bad stomach issues, as I did for a long time. And so one of the solutions to that is potentially cutting out vegetables, because vegetables have a lot of phytic acid. They have these plant defense chemicals. The way to mitigate that, which I think to a point you can do, is to cook the vegetables, but then it ends up being another double-edged sword, because as I cook the vegetables, they become less nutrient dense. And so ultimately, the reason I believe in fruits and roots is because they're easily digested and bioavailable, meaning a lot of the fruit that I'm actually eating, my body is able to utilize those nutrients because there's not other things in there fighting against the nutrients, and my body is able to very easily digest most fruits. And so part of the Powerful One nutrition protocol, I will usually start my day with a lot of fruit, with a lot of honey. I'll try to separate my carbs and energy, and I'll try to use that one. I've talked about this before, but that really kickstarts your metabolism. It aids with digestion. And I like to separate out my carbs and my sugar from my fats and my proteins, trying to honor that Randall cycle. There's certain people you can look at their body and tell when they eat proteins, fats, and carbs all together because they hold on to a little bit of excess fat, which happened to me for years. So that's something I'm playing around with a little bit more. You know, part of the Powerful One nutrition protocol right now is eating fruit and honey in the morning, and then around noon, kind of tapering that off. So for example, this morning I had Muay Thai training, and so what I did right before Muay Thai, I had my coffee, I hydrated, but I had a banana and some raw honey. I went, trained, felt great, performed great, came home, ate a big cup of blueberries, had another banana, and then waited a couple hours, and then I had a protein shake to kind of break my sugar fast. So that was about 32 ounces of raw milk, a little bit of maple syrup, and some organ blend and beef isolate protein powder. I also had some raw cheese, also some raw cottage cheese. And then a little bit later, I'll probably have sort of my bigger meal. Maybe I'll have 6 eggs with a little bit of raw butter, or maybe I will have a little bit of ground beef, a little bit of organic mustard or raw Greek yogurt, something like that. Then usually at nighttime, maybe I'll have some raw ice cream, or I'll have some Greek yogurt with a scoop of protein powder. But that's pretty much it, guys. My diet is super simple these days. One thing that I did forget to mention that I will say about vegetables, I actually am a big proponent of eating fermented vegetables. Fermented vegetables to me is like the best case scenario, because you're not getting as many plant defense chemicals. Probiotics that are found in the fermented part of that vegetable is gonna be super healthy for your microbiome, for your digestion. So I'm a big fan of vegetables when they're fermented. So again, if you're gonna eat vegetables, I recommend cooking them, or definitely getting some fermented vegetables. You can get some fermented cabbage, kimchi, different things like that. Fermented carrots are super good. So if you're gonna eat vegetables, that's fine. If you feel good eating vegetables, eat vegetables. I just personally don't feel good eating vegetables. Green vegetables make my stomach feel horrible. They give me gas and bloating. Those are signs, guys, that our body is not liking the things that we're feeding it. You should not have gut distress every night. And honestly, I didn't know that that wasn't normal. And I had that for like 4 years. And once I cut out green leafy vegetables, once I cut out things like processed gluten, pasteurized dairy, garlic and onions, and focus more on just whole foods that were God created, that have very minimal processing, red meat, chicken. I'm a big fan of sardines. They're super high in omegas, fruit, honey, different forms of dairy, eggs. Again, we have to go off of how we're feeling with these different things. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of blood work. I know that these sardines that I'm eating are super, super important because they're gonna have omega-3s that are good for my brain health. Last time I got my blood work done, my omega-3s were super, super healthy. And the doctor was kind of asking how that was, and I said it's probably because of the sardines, and he agreed. So I'm a big fan of small prey fish that are not going to absorb a lot of mercury, but that are going to be super, super bioavailable protein, but also rich in omega-3s. It's going to be good for your overall brain health, your cognition, and aid in digestion. And so overall, while I know, like I said in the beginning, that there's not one diet fits all, I'm a big fan of elimination diets. Try adding things to your diet, try taking things out of your diet, see how you feel. Personally, if I'm gonna eat grains, the only way I'm gonna eat them is probably gonna be in some sort of resistant starch way, where you obviously strain and drain the rice, cook it, put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then kind of recook it again, reheat it up. That's gonna be the best way for your gut to be able to digest grains. But just ultimately, guys, grains here in America, a lot of the vegetables, even a lot of the fruits that are non-organic are just sprayed with so much glyphosate, so much pesticides, and a lot of the nutrients that would be found in those healthy foods end up being not healthy because of the way that they're processed. And so things like corn and soy that are just very genetically modified are just things that I really try to avoid. And so guys, if there's one thing you can take away from this, it's try to eat unprocessed whole foods that are God created and let it be an experiment for your body. There's certain foods that we may consider healthy that may not be good for your body. For example, me cutting out garlic and onions was one of the best things that I ever did. Me cutting out gluten, cutting out grains, cutting out dairy in a non-raw form were some of the best things that I ever did. So that is the Powerful One nutrition protocol. That is some of the reasons why I eat how I eat. And ultimately, guys, I have good blood work. I operate at very high energy and I feel way better. I don't have any bloating at nighttime anymore. And guys, I had constant bloating for a 4 or 5 year period. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me down below. Obviously, this wasn't a fully comprehensive list, but I know we've already gone long. If you guys have more questions, if there's anything more you want me to talk about as far as my nutrition protocol, how I stay locked in with a Powerful One body and mind and spirit, feel free to let me know in the comment section, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. God bless you guys. Stay healthy. I'll see you on the next one.